The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the Happiness Jungle TV show. My name is CammieBaker.com. I'm your guest host today. And our guest today is coming in from Arizona, a friend of mine, Don Faucet, whom I met out in the speaking world a few months ago. I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and doing the Habitude Warriors event. And a very dynamic, well-spoken, command presence kind of gentleman was there, not only speaking, but the MC. And obviously, we hit it off very well. And I want to introduce you to my new friend, Don Faucet. Don, tell our viewers a little something about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Cammie. I appreciate that. Well, I'm here in sunny Arizona. Again, my name is Don Faucet, and I am CEO of a company called Think, React, Lead. I am a leadership speaker, a corporate speaker, and an executive coach, author, and all those other things that go along with that. But I do reside here in Arizona. I'm prior military. I'm an ex-cop, and I've spent the last 16 years in corporate leadership development, and now the last, I'd say, year and a half, self-employed, or as the buzzword is nowadays, an entrepreneur. So
Absolutely.
I'm enjoying.
Now, what branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Air Force. I was K-9.
Well, thank you so much for your service. You know, one of the things that I help my clients with is cause marketing campaigns. When we have a cause that we're really passionate about and use it to market ourselves and our business. And lots of my clients, I'm very fortunate to say, are very passionate about the veterans. And so we get to do a lot of events supporting our veterans. And so thank you for your service. I just want to get that in there.
Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. We definitely need it.
So, Dom, I know we're having a little bit of a lag here, but we'll just have some patience with one another with the lag. Share with us a little bit about what in the world brought you from being in the military to being out on the streets, keeping us safe as a police officer, and then into corporate and jumping into coaching. How did all that transpire?
I can tell you this, it definitely was not planned. I graduated high school and both my parents were prior military, Air Force to be exact. And I don't know what that boiled down to. And I did my time in the Air Force. And when I got out, I still wanted to serve in a different capacity. And I applied to a bunch of law enforcement agencies and I ended up getting accepted into Jackson, Mississippi as a law enforcement into their police academy, graduated, and I had a good time probably for about the first 6 months, but nothing really prepares you for what takes place in certain environments in certain cities or communities. The stuff that you won't see on TV, stuff that you're not going to see on the news, about on the radio or read in the newspaper, and it changes you as a person. I gained a lot of insight. While I was a cop, I learned a lot about myself, what I was made of, what I wasn't made of. And then I found myself kind of going down this dark hole of non-emotion, lack of feeling, lack of compassion or understanding for the world. Just because I was unfortunately or fortunately, I saw things that just stick with you for a long time. And I was in a position where I could have taken a guy's life because he was armed and obviously I had to do my job. I opted not to, and long story short, affected the arrest. But after that, I didn't want to be put in that position again. His kids. So I put my 2 weeks notice in, and I used my leadership acumen to land a pretty decent job in a sales position in the corporate space back here in Arizona. And I just climbed the ladder with different companies. I never stayed in one company longer than 2 or 3 years, just because I would feel stagnant, and I always had to move. And then I got to a point where I felt that I had done enough in the corporate space, and I, on a whim, decided to write a book. I published it while I was in the corporate space, and it became a best-selling author. Then I started a podcast, and I was doing all of these things as though I was a full-time entrepreneur. And the way I was able to balance that for those of your listeners that have what they call a side hustle is, one, I never referred to it as a side hustle or side anything. I looked at it as a full-time thing. And what I would do, I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, I'd shower, I'd do my thing, I'd go to work, I'd come back home, probably about 5 o'clock, I'd lay down in my bed for about 15 minutes, get up, take a shower. So I repeat the same process that I did in the morning, because my body knew that once I laid down, once I got up, once I got in and out of the shower, my body registered that as a new day. So from like 6 to on developing what is now Think, React, Lead. And I did that for about 2.5 to 3 years and had a pretty decent following on social media platforms and client growth and speaking. So I just one day I just decided to leave. Left on great terms, and I don't regret it. Now, 2 weeks into me leaving, I lost all of my clients and had a couple speaking gigs cancel, and my bank account dried up. But that's what stories are made of.
Well, I love what you're talking about with how you positioned yourself. It was your side hustle, but you didn't let people know it was your side hustle. And I talk to people about that all the time. Like, when I was in real estate, there would be real estate agents that were part-time. And I would tell them, don't tell people that you can't show the house because you're at your job, you're at work. Tell them, you've got another appointment. You just can't make it at that time. There's another appointment. So in other words, it's not about lying. It's about how you position yourself so that you can be seen and be received the way that you want to be seen. So that's awesome. And I love how you kind of tricked yourself into, I'm starting a new day with laying down and taking a shower. That's a great tip. Tell us a little bit about your book and Think, React, Lead. Tell us about the mindset and the concept of that.
So the concept of Think, React, Lead when success and accomplishments aren't enough. It's an interview style book with a workbook in the back, and the workbook is a portion of my command presence program. But being a police officer, I have the fortunate pleasure of seeing it into people's lives, whether they want me to or not. But what I learned was cops, I work nights, so I would respond at night to whatever's going on, nothing typically good. But these people still got to go to work the next day, right? And it could be a CEO, it could be a driver for UPS. It doesn't matter. They still had to go to work the next day, and they still had to deal with these things. And then when I got into the corporate space, I would end up seeing CEOs or high-ranking executives get pulled out on stretchers from heart attacks, and just being in the world long enough, you see successful people take their own lives, and I just decided to write a book when success and accomplishments aren't enough, because I was chasing a certain dollar amount, I was chasing a certain lifestyle, and when I got it, like it didn't do anything for me. I didn't feel anything. It didn't change me. It actually made me worse. It made me feel worse. Like I wasn't happy, and that's what I thought was going to happen. So I decided to write the book just based off kind of some of my lives and what coaching has done for me and what my coaching does for other people. And it was just something that I felt that I needed to do, and I was excited about doing it. And then that was pretty much it in a nutshell.
So when you mention what coaching has done for you, obviously you've got so much life experience that you can coach just from that experience. But did you have mentors and coaches and people that you learned from along the way?
Yes, I actually I've always had mentors, and I started paying for coaching years back, because I just found value in it. I realized that when I would ask questions to people, they would be limited in the attention that they gave me. But when there was a dollar figure attached to it, they'd give me their full attention. And I never planned on being a coach. It wasn't, I planned on just climbing the corporate ladder, and I got certified as a coach so I could better coach my direct reports. That's the only reason why, because I needed something fresh, something new, something unique that wasn't your standard corporate jargon. And what I found was I never got a coach that shared my background. So I never had a coach that was a veteran. I never had a coach that had the same life experiences as me. My first coach was a woman, and the diverse perspectives that I learned from her, I was able to apply to my life. Because granted, yes, I do have a lot of life experience, but my experience is very linear because they're all of those jobs, law enforcement, military, K-9, cop, leadership, development, they're kind of the same. And I needed something that would cross-sect that. And I had coaches from religious groups, from different perspectives. And for me, that was beneficial. And I always tell people, don't ever hire a coach that looks like you, act like you, thinks like you, is the same, if you can avoid it, gender as you, because even if it's just for 90 days, you're going to gain a perspective that you cannot gain on your own.
I love that. I love that you bring that perspective to it, and how you talked about how, there came a point where you started to actually invest in coaches. I say all the time, people who pay attention, people who invest are invested. And there is such a psychological thing that happens when we are willing to invest in ourselves. I know every time I've hired a coach, just the action of taking that credit card out and swiping it, just
Right.
in that moment, things start to happen. Because for one, I realize, I'm worth it. No matter what happens here, I believe in me enough to invest in myself. I'm ready to pony up the cash, and I know that when I've invested, it's helped me to step up. $25,000 investment in one coach for 6 months. You bet your booty you show up for the call, and you don't make excuses, and you do the homework. And I love your perspective on having somebody that's a different gender, different than you. So you want to have different people, but you also want to have people that are an expert in their field. I say all the time, don't hire a financial advisor that's broke as a joke. Don't hire a physical trainer who's out of shape and smoking cigarettes, and don't hire a coach that's
Right.
not being coached and that's not coachable. So you mentioned that you had a female coach. What other kind of coaches have you had?
So I've had a woman coach. I have had what I call a civilian coach, somebody who's never been in the military. For me, when I find a coach, I look for somebody that's not intimidated by me, somebody that I can't shake up. But I also look for somebody who's non-military, just because our conversations are going to be very, very dialed in along the same lines of things that I've heard before. I've had an atheist coach, which I'm an atheist. My coach now, I've had a coach that worked for Google. And I have no desire to work for Google. So it's just, I've made it a practice now to make sure that the 5 people closest to me that don't, and I'm not talking about coaching, just associations, the closest 5 people to me do not look, sound, act, think, or believe the same way I do. That way I don't get comfortable. And I'm always learning about people.
That's awesome. I hear that. And so what about the people that you coach? Talk to us a little bit about what they look like. Like, who are they? What do they typically do for work? What are they wanting to accomplish by working with you?
So the last 3 clients that I had, one was from India. He was in real estate. Another guy was in real estate from Texas, and a good old boy. So I would have never guessed that he would have sought me out, but we had a lot of similarities. And then I had a female client who was a global executive.
And when you say that you never would have
All
guessed.
for an increased level. No, this. So being a cop in Jackson, Mississippi, you meet some of the truest Southern good old boys. And these are guys that you hit a deer on the side of the road, it's going in the back of their car, their truck, and it's going to be skinned by the time the sun goes down.
Yep.
I grew up in California. I'm a kid. My path never typically crossed with individuals like that. And I didn't know that. I would have never thought that my polished suit wearing brand on social media would resonate with that type of person, because typically those crowds don't mix. But what he saw me speak once, and I'm a little assertive in my speaking, and that's he needed. He needed something. And we're still friends to this day, but they come to me for this increased level of confidence. They're already confident on their own, but there's just some tweaks, because what happens is some people become so confident, but it's really arrogance, because they're pushing to prove a point to somebody, as opposed to just being very comfortable and being confident from that standpoint. And my confidence comes from serving others. It didn't, from a social standpoint, from a societal standpoint. The weaker I became, the stronger I was perceived. So the moment I began to let go of my past military experience, let go of kicking in the doors and all the things I did as a cop, on being the best father, being the best husband, being a leader at home, before I tried to be a leader outside of the home, right? And become vulnerable with my direct reports, dialed in conversations with them, and seeing past myself. The moment I started doing that, I stopped having nightmares. As I dealt with PTSD, I went from getting an hour's worth of sleep to 3 hours of sleep, which for me is great. And I started to connect with humans, right, just at their core.
I love when you said that that the confidence was really coming from other places with your clients, et cetera. I know I've mentioned before that years ago, when people would think that I was confident, what I really was scared. I was really, operating from fear. And when I was out networking and being assertive and aggressive, and what some people would see as confidence, others would see as arrogance, et cetera, was just flat out fear of not being able to succeed and wanting to be able to be better than the man that I was competing against, or just all that stuff that goes on in our head. I have a client right now who, if you met her and knew what she does for a living, you would think, wow, this person's really just totally all together and got the world by the horns. And at the same time, she feels like, well, what if people find out I'm a fraud and I really don't know what I'm doing? And we all, I feel that way sometimes, the fraud syndrome. So what do you do with these folks? Like, what does a typical session or body of work look like with Don Faucet?
We'll start with just a 2-hour consultation, just a conversation about what it is that they where they're from. And because I'm so vulnerable in social media and on stage, they come right out the gate with verbalizing things they never told anybody, and we start there. Right. I find out what it is that if they were to die today, what's the legacy? And I know people throw around legacy, but what are they right now? The first question I ask is, when is the last time you were happy? And I had a lady tell me, she said, the last time I was happy was last Christmas, because I bought a bunch of gifts for my kids and they were happy. And I said, so you weren't happy for you. You were happy for the results that you were able to provide your family based off your work, but that's not happiness. Like, when is the last time you were just a couple examples? And she tried to recall, but she couldn't. She stopped at the age she was 15 because something happened at that age, and she's and she got her joy from other people. But I said, ma'am, your youngest child is 16. He's a boy. He'll be a man in about two years, and he'll probably follows the same path that your other two sons have. And then what? You're by yourself, or you end up controlling his relationships and ruining that for him. And longer than 3 hours. We engage a 6-month coaching process, and we started with. I like to start with fun. A lot of coaches don't do this. What I found worked for me. I was coming home and sleeping in my closet. Like, it was me, my Glock, and I was in my on the outside. I had the nice car, I had the nice job, I had come home and sleep in my closet. I was afraid of my own shadow because I couldn't handle my nightmares. I've never done drugs, I never drank, so I didn't want to go down that path. But I knew that if I did, it's a wrap, like it'd be done. And she suggested that I do one thing that puts a smile on my face that I can recall as a kid, and that thing was skateboarding. And to this day, I skateboard, and it just put. You can't be mad. It's weird. So I started going to the movies by myself. I started treating myself to dinner, and I started traveling by myself. So I find things working with my clients, like, what do that's fun. And what's crazy is that is one of the hardest parts of the process for a lot of my clients. They can't break that perfect. It's a fallacy. Like, they can't break this person that they've taught themselves to be, and that can take time, and some having fun. And it stems from not valuing ourselves. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, where you leave your house to go purchase the smallest thing, like a shirt, and you get there, you see the shirt, but you can't purchase it. And I dealt with that for years, and that's because I didn't value who I was. I didn't feel worthy. And so many people walk around. It's not that they just don't feel like they deserve anything.
It's so true. You know, being able to find ourselves worthy and to have value is so extremely important. Dom, we only have about 60 seconds left. You've got 30 seconds to give us what is your one pearl of wisdom that you'd like to leave our viewers with to help them find their joy, their happiness, and their value?
One pearl of wisdom is forgive those that have hurt you. Don't wait for them to apologize. But first, forgive yourself if you've wronged somebody else, because they may not accept your apology.
Wow, that's heavy. That chokes me up. That's a good thing we're coming to the end of the show, because I think I need to think back on that one. So thank you so much for spending your time with us today. It's been my pleasure to meet you. I can't wait to see you at other events and watch your career grow on Instagram. We didn't even really get a chance to talk about all of that, but follow Dom on Instagram. He is a rock star times 10. CamiBaker.com here, thanking you for being on the Happiness Jungle TV show.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.